Did you know that right now, as we speak, over $120 trillion is being held hostage? It's not in a vault. It's not behind a lock. It's trapped inside the rusted 40-year-old pipes of the global financial system. Every major corporation you know, from airlines to tech giants, has billions of dollars idling because banks are too slow to move them. But tonight, the game of legacy just ended. Ripple didn't just buy a company called G Treasury. They just bought the keys to the world's corporate cash. If you think this is about a stablecoin or a new product, you've already lost the plot. This is the birth of the new global RTGS. And at the dead center of this $120 trillion monster sits a single asset that everyone, including the legacy giants, is finally starting to realize they can no longer ignore. The trapped capital is about to be unleashed, and the bridge has already been built. Welcome back. To understand the magnitude of what just happened with G Treasury, you have to stop thinking about Ripple as a payments company. For decades, the world of corporate treasury has been a closed, dusty room. It is a 120 trillion market where massive companies, the ones that fuel your daily life, manage their cash, their risk, and their liquidity. The problem? They've been using infrastructure built for a world that no longer exists. A 9-to-5 world. When Brad Garlinghouse announced that G Treasury is now part of the Ripple stack, he wasn't just adding a new logo to the website. He was acquiring 40 years of trust. G Treasury has over 13,000 institutional clients. These aren't just crypto startups. These are Fortune 500 giants. Think about the Trojan horse effect. Ripple didn't have to go to every CFO and explain why blockchain is better. They simply bought the platform those CFOs already use every single morning to manage their billions. In the legacy system, if a global corporation has $500 million sitting in a bank account over the weekend, that money is dead. It's not moving, it's not earning, and it's trapped by banking hours. Ripple Treasury changes the equation. By combining G Treasury's management platform with Ripple's digital infrastructure, companies can now access 24/7, 365 liquidity. We are talking about real-time settlement. No more waiting 3 to 5 days for cross-border payments. Yield optimization, putting every single dollar to work, even while the banks are closed. Zero pre-funding, freeing up millions in trapped capital that used to sit in Nostro-Vostro accounts. Ripple has spent the last few years quietly building a complete infrastructure stack. From Medico for custody, to Hidden Road for prime brokerage, to G Treasury for command and control. They didn't just build a bridge, they built the entire transportation system. And most importantly, they built it with regulatory compliance across 75+ jurisdictions. While others are fighting for clarity, Ripple is signing the contracts that define the next 50 years of finance. The CFOs of the world don't care about moonshots. They care about efficiency. And Ripple just became the most efficient operating system in the history of corporate treasury. But here is the million-dollar question. Where does XRP fit into this massive machine? Is it just a bystander? Or is it the very fuel that makes this $120 trillion engine run? Let's look at the infrastructure stack and find the truth. There is a narrative floating around the market right now, and it's being fueled by either a lack of understanding or a desire to create noise. The narrative says, now that Ripple has RLUSD, their stablecoin, they don't need XRP anymore. If you believe this, you don't understand how a global financial engine works. Think of the Ripple Treasury stack as a high-speed transportation system. RLUSD is the vehicle. It's a stable, regulated medium that institutions use to represent value. But even the most advanced car cannot move without fuel. In the world of on-demand liquidity, ODL, XRP is that fuel. XRP, when G Treasury moves hundreds of millions across borders for a Fortune 500 company, they aren't just moving stablecoins from point A to point B. They are solving a liquidity gap. Stablecoins like RLUSD are great when you have a direct pair, but the global FX market is a chaotic sea of hundreds of different currencies. You cannot have a stablecoin for every single exotic corridor. That is where XRP steps in. It is the universal bridge. It is the only asset in the stack that provides instant settlement without the need for pre-funded accounts. Nostro vostro. Let's look at what Ripple has actually built with its recent acquisitions. It's not a product. It's a digital RTGS, real-time gross settlement system. Medico and Palisade Custody. They provide the vault to hold the assets. Hidden Road, Prime Brokerage. They provide the institutional access and credit. G Treasury, Command Center. They provide the dashboard for the CFOs. The XRP Ledger, the rails. The decentralized foundation where everything settles 24/7. When you look at this image, you are looking at the future of TradFi. The beauty of this system is that it makes blockchain invisible. The 13,000 corporate clients of G Treasury don't need to know they are using the XRP ledger. They just see that their trapped capital is suddenly free. They see that their cross-border costs have dropped by 60 to 90%. Every time a transaction happens in this stack, whether it's for cash forecasting, risk management, or payments, it reinforces the utility of the underlying ledger. We are moving away from the buzzword era and into the production era. XRP is not waiting for a use case. It is being hardwired into the $120 trillion corporate treasury market as we speak. While most of the crypto market is chasing memes and hype, Ripple is chasing the total infrastructure of value. If you are a long-term holder, this is the most exciting time in history. Because once the guardrails of regulatory uncertainty are fully gone, the utility being built today will explode in value tomorrow. But how does this affect you, the individual investor? If thousands of companies start using this system, what happens to the supply and demand of XRP? Let's talk about mass adoption and the reality of 24/7 global settlement. The question I get asked most often is, when will mass adoption finally happen? My answer is always the same. It's happening right now, but it doesn't look like what you expected. Mass adoption doesn't mean everyone is paying for coffee with crypto. It means the $120 trillion that moves between corporations every year is migrating to a more efficient rail. Think about what Ripple Treasury truly represents. It is the final erasure of the boundary between traditional finance, TradFi, and decentralized finance, DeFi. When a Fortune 500 company in Europe uses the G Treasury dashboard to settle a debt in South America, and that transaction happens in seconds rather than days, the invisible revolution has won. They are using ISO 2022 compliant rails that reach 90% of the global FX markets. They are accessing institutional-grade custody that is safer than any legacy bank vault. What we are witnessing is an efficiency spiral. Once one major corporation reduces its trapped capital by 80% using Ripple's infrastructure, its competitors have no choice but to follow. If they don't, they simply cannot compete in a 24/7 global economy. This is how XRP goes from a speculative asset to essential global infrastructure. Every acquisition, Medico, Standard Custody, Hidden Road, and now G Treasury is a piece of a puzzle that creates a complete, closed-loop financial ecosystem, an ecosystem where value moves as fast as information. We are no longer in the test phase. Ripple has doubled its engineering capacity in just the last 90 days. They are reinvesting 100% of their earnings into this innovation. They aren't building for the next bull run. They are building for the next century. For you, the individual investor, the noise of the daily price action is irrelevant. What matters is the utility. What matters is the fact that the guardrails are being dismantled one by one. The Internet of Value isn't a theory anymore. It is a live, breathing machine, and it is currently being plugged into the heart of global commerce. The future is frictionless. The future has no boundaries, and the bridge is already in place. In a market driven by impulse and noise, clarity becomes an advantage. A simple reminder: speed creates mistakes, while calm evaluation creates strength. Thank you for the trust and for being part of a community that values logic over emotion. Patience is discipline. Rational thinking is protection. As always, the future isn't something to wait for, it's something to prepare for.